Shut up and sit down.
Welcome to the Answers Yes podcast, where we will explore the cause and effect of just saying yes in your everyday life or in business. I will dig into topics that are not just stimulating, but will challenge you to be better in everything you do. The podcast is based on the simplicity of saying yes to opportunities you might encounter every single day. I'm your host, Jim Riley. Join me in my first series titled Blue Collar Redefined. Welcome to this week's show. Appreciate everybody tuning in for another fantastic Wednesday of The Answer is Yes. Well, it's been a good couple of weeks for me. We've had some good guests on the shows, and I appreciate your comments. I've actually heard some feedback from people, not to name any names, Richard, but asking for a little bit longer show or a little bit more content as it relates to the topics. And if that's something that you're interested in, please reach out to me and let me know. I do take in everybody's comments, requests, notes, anything that you have to say. I take it all into consideration because it's important to me that you continue to listen and that I continue to put out a great show. And with that being said, if you have somebody that wants to be on a show called The Answer is Yes, please let me know. I have a pretty decent list of actual guests that will be on the show in the near future, but I'm always looking for more content and a variety of people that have said yes in their careers. So please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I feel like we've had a good variety of guests over the last 6 months. We have over 6,100 downloads of The Answer is Yes. I'm just blown away. And I think that that's a reminder for me, as well as it could serve as a reminder to you, because I'm assuming that you've been following along the show and some of the things that I've said. But, you know, I talk about your goals. What you believe is what you can achieve. I never thought that I would launch a podcast, first of all. And second of all, I didn't really think about what success of that podcast show would look like. And the fact is we have over 6,000 downloads of this show. It just absolutely blows me away. So that's a nice affirmation for me that what I've been doing is the right thing and I can continue to do it and hopefully see some success here. And that number will continue to grow. One day we'll hit the 10,000 mark. Then next thing you know, it'll be the 100,000 mark, and we'll be off and running. So what you believe is what you can achieve. What I'm going to try to do in the future is talk a little bit pre or post show about some of the things that I have going on in my life in terms of goals and some public speaking that I'm going to be doing in 2019. And the topic of those speeches are going to be about being driven and all that goes within that. And being driven actually has a lot to do with having a goal in mind and pushing towards that goal. At least that's my definition of being driven. And recent times, a lot of people have said to me, gosh, Jim, you're so driven in what you do. And I've been trying to define exactly what that means. And one way that I like to look at that is, what does the finish line look like? What do I see myself doing, having, or being in terms of the finish line? And then working towards that. So I guess being driven for me is about having a goal and what happens between now and the achievement of that goal. And the being driven part, I guess, is getting up every morning and knowing what that goal is and pushing towards it. Even if it's 1 minute of my day or 1 hour or more of my day going towards that goal, but every day doing something towards the achievement of that. Sometimes that could be as simple as visualization, you know, what it might look like at the finish line or on a podium winning an award or going to the bank and depositing that check of the amount of money that I need. So it could be a number of things, but sometimes visualization is really all that you need on some days. And then really many of the days it's about hard work. And that is something that I have in common with today's guest. Her name is Erin Cosgrove, and she is a musician, artist. She's played some roles on TV, and she was driven enough, literally, to get in her car in Florida and head towards Hollywood and make a career out of, you know, all the things that she loved and enjoyed and appreciated. I think she's got a great story. So let's tune into that interview with Erin and hear a little bit more about how she got to where she is today. Hello and welcome to the Answers Yes podcast. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate all your comments and feedback this last week. We're just having a great time with some incredible guests, and it just keeps getting more and more interesting. And I'm learning so much about people's lives and where they've come from and what they're doing, and today is no exception. This will be our first entertainer. So I've got Erin Cosgrove on the line, and Erin are you a singer or an actress, or what do you do exactly?
I think it's a whole melting pot of everything. I would consider myself a singer, songwriter, and I dabble a little bit in acting. So the whole shebang.
Well, you were introduced to me as being a singer, which I was excited about because you're a country singer, and that's what I spend a lot of my time listening to these days. And I've heard a few of your songs.
Awesome.
You
love it. It's fun.
You've got a great voice, and I see from your website that you had some training in opera. Is that right?
Yeah, so I actually majored in classical voice opera in college, thinking that I wanted to just make sure that I had a good base for continuing to perform. And I always heard horror stories of people on Broadway like losing their voices at like 35, and I'm like, oh no, like I don't want to do that. So I went ahead and studied classically, so I would be able to continue to sing the rest of my life. That's the goal, at least. We'll see what happens.
Well, when I got the call about having you on the show, it was suggested that you're getting ready to go on tour. Is that also correct?
So I went on a small pop-up tour in Florida, where I'm from, back in spring. We did 12 shows in, I think it was like 4 weeks.
Wow.
We did like hard rock. We did a few like festivals. I actually performed for a fun little, I guess the 35th anniversary of this triathlon that I've been doing since I was like 16.
Uh-huh.
So I got to perform for them, and then we performed at the Rays baseball stadium too for one of their games, which was a lot of fun. So we just did this fun little tour in Florida to kind of be like, hey friends, remember me?
I'm here.
Hey, yeah.
So in my mind, you're out working, you're touring. That's, I don't want to say it's the end of the game, but, you're doing what you want to be doing and what you love. But this show's about how you got there. And I would love to hear some of your background. Take us back maybe as far as you want to go when it comes or relates to what you're doing today and how you got here. So maybe tell us a little bit about how you started singing and why you fell in love with that.
Okay, let's see. We're going to have to rewind to about age 2.
Wow. Okay, that's way back.
I know. Yeah. I don't remember this, obviously, because that was, toddler years. But my mom told me when I was a child that I used to, basically was like singing before I was talking. And I would just walk around the house like making up words and making up songs at like age 5 and just singing things and she would always try to record me or whatever. But I mean, that was back in like the VHS days.
Uh-huh.
So it's kind of hard to get that on tape.
Yeah, absolutely.
But she, joked about that, always saying that she could totally see me performing and being a singer because I was writing music when I was 5.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where it started, I think. And from there, I just kind of fell into it. I was homeschooled for a while, doing school plays and performing at the local church and community theater and whatnot. And then from there, I realized that it was really something that I loved. So I started doing the national anthem at baseball games when I was about 12. Continued on to high school, where I actually had the choice to choose a high school where all my friends went, or a high school that had a nationally ranked show choir.
Really?
And I was like, oh man, this is tough. I want to go hang out with my friends. But come to find out, the year I went to go to high school that I wanted to go to that had any kind of a music program, cut funding, and they totally got rid of their band and choir. So I had the decision of, well, do I go to high school where I'll probably never sing again? Or do I go to a brand new high school where I know no one and be in the show choir that I might make it into?
Okay. And
I think based off of your show, I think I said yes to the high school that had the show choir. And long story short, ended up being in the show choir, did some solos in that, started taking voice lessons, competed at the national and state, or not national, I guess, well, national, the district and state level for classical voice received excellent superiors, sophomore, junior, senior years in high school. And then kind of reached a weird point in my life where it was like, okay, now we're off to another chapter. Do I, again, continue with music, or what do I major in college? And that's where it gets fun.
Okay. Well, I want to ask you real quick about this high school decision, because I don't think we have any listeners that are that young, but it's interesting to me because maybe a parent would appreciate this perspective. That's a big decision to go to a high school at that age, because you're in love with music more than you had the draw to be around your friends. I mean, that had to have been really tough to make that decision. Were your parents behind that decision with you, or is that really was kind of on your plate to decide what you wanted to do?
So thankfully it kind of fell into their ballpark, because the high school that had the music program was actually where both of my parents went to high school. They were both alumni, so a lot of the teachers knew them. They knew of us, and it was kind of more of their choice. I think they pushed me a little bit toward that direction, but at the same time, I mean, they still gave me that ultimate decision what I wanted to do, because it was the rest of my life. But I think my mom also was in the band, and I think that had a lot to do with my wanting to go to the same high school that my parents did, and just some of the traditions and some of the fun things they would tell me about the school. So I definitely think they had some influence,
Sure.
But I think at the end of the day, they still were kind of it's your life. If you really want to go to this other school, you can, but we think you'd be happier here.
Wow.
And they were right.
Yeah. It's really impressive to me that your parents left that option open to you, because I don't think that happens enough, but that you're intuitive enough to say, yeah, I want to pursue this singing at this high school. Which is taking you on to the next part of your story. Tell us about when things got crazy, when it started coming to college decisions.
So the college, they weren't quite on the same page. At least my dad wasn't. He was just okay, you're going into college, major in something that obviously you would be financially stable and sound. It's well, definitely music. That's not, that's not stable and sound. That's the complete polar opposite from it.
Yeah.
And so my dad's, he's a doctor, so he's very analytical, and my mom's the creative side. So for a while there was this constant struggle and decision of, okay, what do I do? I want to pursue music. I want to do this for the rest of my life, but do I want to major in this? And looking back, there was definitely, I would say, minor regrets, not necessarily something I could change. But going into college, I started with an unknown major, got accepted into a school that I liked. And then halfway through the summer, I was I want to major in music. Mm-hmm. And by that point, all the auditions had already passed. So a lot of these music schools, their auditions were, the spring of my senior year of high school. So I had missed all of the auditions for any of these schools because I decided that I wasn't going to do that.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, this school, I sent them my credentials. I got some referrals from my teachers. They allowed me to audition the summer before fall. So it would be my fall of my freshman year. 3 days before I was supposed to start school, found out I was accepted into their music program. So I had to go back up there, change all my classes because I had been accepted into the music program. So to me, that was a sign. I was okay, maybe I should do this. My dad was not happy.
Yeah, okay.
He's okay, how are you going to pay for your house? How are you going to pay for your car? It's Dad, I'm going to be a famous singer. It's okay. Age 18, that's what your dad wants to hear.
Yeah, sure.
So lo and behold, I go to the school. Everything's wonderful. I mean, everything's great, but at the end of the day, I wasn't happy. I was in a place where there was nothing where I could grow as a performer. There was no theater. There was no music. There was just kind of this small little town where it was well, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm not going to be a teacher. That's not what I want to do. So I ended up transferring to University of South Florida, which is the area where I'm from, Tampa Bay area. Mm-hmm. Then again, had to re-audition for the music program, got accepted, and continued to study. And thankfully, there was, Disney was right down the street. Busch Gardens